So today is my older daughter, my firstborn daughter's birthday. She's turning 20 or has turned 20 today. And it's inspired me after having had no ability to contact her or communicate in any way over the past 2 years and 2 months, but who's counting? To be able to share a little bit of my story with her and with you. Um, a little bit about me. I am a sole parent of two daughters. I worked for the past 2 years in clinical healthcare. I am a health nut. And by that, I mean that I've always been turned on to a world that seemed to be heading in a direction that wasn't very organic and sustainable. I was raised on a homestead in upstate New York, and we had pigs, goats, chickens, rabbits, multiple gardens, and fruit trees and Christmas trees, and you name it. I had a pretty ideal childhood from the standpoint of having plenty of exposure to the outdoor world, and that's really inspired me for my entire life. Inspired me to have two home births, to have bought a homestead myself back in 2019, and really put a lot of emphasis on the way that I live my life, which is primarily outside the screen. So I apologize for this amateur delivery of my story. But it is what I'm working with right now. So I think it's more important to just put my thoughts together and out there. I've always been a very smart person. I was one of those people that, the lights go off or on when I'm underneath them. I have a tendency to interrupt electronic signals, especially when it comes to computers and Wi-Fi. And so I'm pretty sensitive to that. I get headaches from being around Wi-Fi. So I can relate to the stories that are surrounding Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk. I also have had a pretty prolific dream life and notice symbols, and my ability to manifest things has surprised me and lots of people around me. Yeah, I guess there's a lot to say about that. I was in what was called the MORE program when I was growing up. So I think that in about fourth or fifth grade, the teachers in my elementary school recognized my, I guess, potential or, perhaps special skills when it came to logic and problem solving and being able to be a left and right brain thinker. And I feel like throughout my career, throughout my life, that's been a part of my gift, is to be able to combine information and intelligence from a standpoint of what is known and what is intuitive. And I've also been shamed for that. I did not take on the COVID narrative that was comfortable and convenient. I did not trust the science. When I came out of school, I went to the National Institutes of Health, was my first job. I worked as a predoctoral research fellow at the NIH National Cancer Institute. And pretty early on, I found myself to be disappointed and disenchanted with the system. And so I started to speak up and ask questions when my principal investigator was doing work that I didn't agree with, and it seemed to be indubitably sus. So going to my supervisor and attempting to be a whistleblower at 21 or 22 years old didn't go over well. A couple days later, I was asked to, or somebody showed up at my door I lived in Bethesda, Maryland at the time, and knocked on the door and asked me to put the key under the door and do not show up to the lab anymore. So that was kind of my orientation to the world. And yeah, that's been a really tricky path for me to navigate, using my intelligence for positive, for good. I feel like I've spent a lot of time kind of entrapped in the system that what I call a slave care system, and doesn't do a particularly great job of allowing ideas and opinions that are not in the mainstream, and not typical. So all of that to say that I went about life in this world in a very different way than most people. I love that part of me. I love that ability. I'm not really bothered by the fact that I don't feel particularly attached to doing things the way everybody else wants to or needs to do them. But it led me down a path of really knowing that I, can be um, thrown to the wolves, or just really exiled from society post COVID, when I started offering my area of expertise in my knowing as a microbiology undergrad major. And when I started to share my opinion, which is now held true to be, solid science, that the COVID vaccines weren't vaccines at all, that the advice that was being given, that everybody should, be masked at all times and 6 feet apart, and, jab, jab, jab. It wasn't the narrative that made any sense to me as a clinician, as a scientist, as a microbiology major, as a clinical doctor in healthcare. And so for that, I was shut down pretty quickly. And when you're a sole parent, just struggling to survive and put food on the table, I didn't have the resources, the energy, the support to be able to really fight hard. I was living in northern Vermont. It was very inconvenient to have, the position that I held, and the opinions that I had. And for that, there was a narrative that was created around me to, I think, silence, to shush. And I'm pretty sure that that was the beginning of what changed things for my older daughter, who was receiving a lot of pressure to be vaccinated. And the administrators certainly didn't like my um, my mothering, I guess is the best way to put it. And they thought they had better ideas about how to raise a kid. And little by little, my ability to parent was undermined. And I think I was a little bit naive to the awareness of what was actually happening to undermine me. My daughter was a high schooler at the time. I was a kind of a hybrid public-private school that was about an hour away from where we lived. And so she was a boarding student at this academy. And she was housed in a dorm with I think there were about 4 dorm mothers. And it was an all-girls dorm. Um, and she began to be raised in a way that was very different from the way that I was raising my daughter. She started to come home telling me things about, calling her friends and her dorm parents as, her quote unquote family. She came home with hateful behaviors. She was sometimes unkind. This is very, very different. I kind of have to preface this by saying that, my daughter is, and I, my daughter, both of my daughters and I, are extremely close when you grow up with a sole parent. I'm the mother and the father and the breadwinner and, all things for all of them. And I, at the time, was able to do everything happily. I was not the kind of person, I don't complain about things. I'm a really hard worker. I am capable and, like I said, a problem solver. And though coming into motherhood for me, happened twice in ways that were unexpected, unanticipated, but certainly not unwanted. I always believed that I would be a mother. And so, despite two extremely abusive relationships that ended in pregnancies, my girls were never not wanted. The joy of my life, miracles. And I raised them in a way that I wanted them to feel like they were loved and honored and appreciated. And I would be the first one to admit that I am not perfect. Certainly, had my moments. I had temper. I got angry from time to time, but 99.9%. I mean. We lived life like the Gilmore Girls. We had a lot of fun. We weren't, rich by any means, but, rich in love, rich in heart, we just, we spent a lot of time outdoor and hiking and traveling and with animals. And it wasn't until kind of later on my older daughter's middle school years that, cell phones became kind of a part of a teenager's life. And I feel like that is a big part of what changed for her. It was a point of contention for both of us because I really wanted to slow down that aspect of her childhood and her growing up. And it happened slower than, her peers were getting the latest iPhones and having unlimited access to it. And for me, I knew that there was a danger in allowing kids to have that kind of unlimited access. I knew that there was going to be a slippery slope. And so I held on to their innocence, and we didn't have a cell phone for my girls during their early childhood years. For my older daughter, I think it was sixth grade that she got a phone, and it was one of those track phones. Um, and my younger daughter now has a phone as well. And so I've seen the difference of not having one, having one. I've seen a massive, massive decline, having lived through COVID years and children being entirely dependent on their electronic devices versus kids that have grown up, around animals and nature, being social, learning how to navigate relationships. I think that I saw it coming even prior to COVID, that the world was changing and that there was going to be a need to be an advocate and help to change the trajectory of humanity and where it's headed. And so to circle back around to the story of, COVID and my older daughter ended up living in the dorms and being pressured into a forced vaccination in spite of my wishes being dismissed. I was not wanting her to be vaccinated. I was working one day and my daughter sent me probably about 20 text messages when I was in a visit with a patient. I couldn't pick up the phone. When I came back around, she was devastated, in tears, that the school nurse had taken her out of class. And despite her saying that she wasn't sure that that was what I had wanted for her, she took her anyway to the hospital clinic and had her vaccinated. Come to find out, it was one of the vaccine lots that were more harmful, was problematic, according to the VA, the VAERS database. I did report the vaccine injury for her. And things really haven't been the same since. Yeah. I have a lot to say about that. That's a whole episode in and of itself. But what I want to finish with here today in this first premiere episode is read a letter that I wrote to her today on her 20th birthday. It's kind of personal and vulnerable, and also I think expresses a little bit of a completer picture of where I'm at and where we're at. So here goes. And I will change her name for the sake of privacy. Happy birthday to my one and only Bia. I love you with all of my heart. The river's wide, and I can't cross o'er, and neither hath I wings to fly. Give me a boat that will carry three, and we all shall row, my girls and I. I'm saying it, but this is a song that I used to sing to my girls over and over and over when they were infants. Kind of ironic. Cass and I are contemplating whether or not our trip will be fruitful today. Will we get to see you? We don't know. With recent history as our gauge, we don't feel terribly confident. It is a brutally cold day with potentially dangerous driving conditions on account of the snow squalls, and my car sometimes breaks down and doesn't have all-wheel drive or snow tires. I want to do the drive, and I'm not sure that I can survive the continued disappointment and heartbreak if this trip is for naught. Your absence and the repeat dismissals of my outreach attempts for our reconciliation have been hard blows. You cannot imagine the vapid grief that has set up shop in my body. I am suffering slowly and surely in an insidious way. Silence is, in fact, violence. That I know through the embodiment of pain as a result of the tragedy surrounding your absence. I question the essence of life itself, goodness, the word, and freedom of speech. Where is due process to ensure that I could have a simple conversation with my now adult child? I was robbed of knowing you at all in your early adulthood. What a messed up world we're in. Yet I know that forgiveness is medicine. Connection is key. We can free ourselves of the fake dialectic if given the chance. The academy has failed you, has failed us. It has created this level of hate and division for you and for us. So has your college by allowing silence to live on, to fester a hellscape of familial absence from a lack of attention or care. They insist that they aren't complicit, hands clean by way of epic modern gaslighting. But I know better. I refer to this as secondhand narcissism. That is what is being taught in schools today and reinforced through cultural norms. It is the trope of modern culture, and it's disgusting. Wake up, Bia. You're the best verbalist I know. You're the editor of your school magazine. You're a debater and a thinker, and you've been sold lies. You are smart and independent. There's nothing more to prove. You already are brilliant, potent, and a force to be reckoned with. I envy your strength, but I am not your enemy. I'm gutted that you chose to weaponize your gift, your voice, opinions, and words, to use it against me for the sake of money and false allegiance. It's an empty promise that can never be fulfilling because it's absent of real love. Sourcing happiness from ego and power is appetizing, especially to those who are struggling. I understand where confusion created anxiety for you, and anxiety caused you to accept a false narrative, spoon fed by the ed, the med, and the fed slop of legacy media's propagandist machine and common social acceptance. The adults who surrounded you dripped doubt of me into your subconscious because I was not like them. I didn't take the bait of COVID, quote unquote, vaccines, lockdowns, and all that was a threat to them. My forward thinking ways were sold to you as dangerous because they challenged the common narrative. And so a character assassination plot was born to help you win your way, to maximize college scholarships and freedom from student loan debt, the ball and chain that tethers me to poverty and enslaves me as a member of the working poor. I completely understand why you would want something different for yourself, for the world dangles the carrot of higher education without admission of its entrapment. So you chose to sell your soul and hurt the ones who love you most for this end goal of financial gain, to set yourself up in a way that may not undermine your future. I don't shame you for this, because I know that you were duped, mind controlled, and sold a different potential reality. You were a willing patsy, and they preyed on your loyalty and intelligence as their gain. The dark cult of academia is known for its predation of the naive, under-resourced, beautiful, creative, and intellectual youth like you. I saw it coming, and I did my best to expose the evil when you brought hate home. But it was overwhelming and coming at me from all directions. My anger was always pointed at the people who were changing you to develop behaviors that drove apathy and selfishness to the forefront of our previously peaceful home. It wasn't you that I resented. It was those who were driving the bus of hate and division, teachers, administrators, politicians, mainstream media, even your grandmother and grandfather. You were a willing passenger on that bus, and I believe that I was always clear with you about where we stood. Our last conversation highlighted my frustration with the ways in which you were beginning to abandon your soul. It was brutal to witness. Led to that moment by the toxins of EMFs, poisonous school cafeteria food, LED lights, lack of sleep, poor water quality, insufficient time in nature. But even worse was the influence of social media, attending to the social norms, polluted politics, and fierce judgment against those who were perceived to be called, quote unquote, anti-vaccine, or categorized as a, quote unquote, Trumpster. For the record, neither characterization is true for me. I had opted out of the existing vaccine schedule. You have all relevant vaccines, and they were delivered safely and with integrity to choose the healthiest path for you. And I could not, in my good conscience, vote for either Trump or Kamala, knowing that the current system is, in fact, a corrupt uniparty that divides its people, only to not make a bit of a difference when it comes to politics, to govern or improve humanitarian concerns or improve American foundations. Beware of what you hear, and be careful of who you trust. Your grandmother has laid down a thick field of misinformation about me. So too have the folks at the academy. This comes from toxic ideologies that need to be investigated. Modern psychology is built off of Freudian foundations and grotesque corruption of academia, medicine, and government. Freud was a pedophile and satanic cultist. He developed theories and practices that continue to wreak havoc on modern psychology and sociology in the name of quote unquote science. This originated from Jewish mystical occult practices, which devolved into militaristic and global underground experiments on people, like with MK Ultra. I think you'd be fascinated and enlightened by doing research on this. So when you hear, quote unquote, trust the science, know that real science has been captured and undermined for centuries. I hope that you receive this, Bia, not just so that you know my perspective, but to really receive this message because it contains deep, fierce maternal love. This kind of love isn't intended to simply give you comfort and convenience. It's not squishy and temporary, sunshine and rainbows, sugary and sappy. It's solid and unconditional. You will not source this love from teachers or friends or whomever you label as your quote unquote new family. I will try multiple venues to get this message to you because I'm not sure how to send an SOS in this day and age. This is my quote unquote message in a bottle in hopes that it will reach your shore across the wide river until that boat of the boat of three, the boat that will carry three arrives. Love cannot be canceled. It won't be silenced. Love will find the way. This letter is my first birthday gift for you today on the start of your 21st year of life. I also have a super cute sweater for you from a darling boutique in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I saw it and I was like, oh, that's so Bia. Cass and I have Christmas gifts for you as well, and hugs and carrot cake muffins handmade from scratch. We think about you every day, holding space for you in our separate blessing. I guess that Cass and I will begin our journey now. If I stay home, I will feel dead inside. And if I go and you aren't there, I will feel dead inside. But if you are there, well, that would be a birthday miracle, just like the day you were born. And I believe in miracles because I've experienced life with you. I gave my daughter a time and place to meet us. Of course, she's canceled me on social media. She's changed her phone number or blocked it. She's blocked me from emails. And so I really don't have a personal path forward to be able to get messages to her. But I asked a few of my friends to attempt to get those messages to her. And yeah, breaks my heart to report that we did drive to her college and she wasn't there. Not entirely surprised that after 2 years and 2 months, that was the outcome because this is where we're at as a society. There's this dissociation that is being sold to kids. This is what they're taking out of public schools. It's private schools too. This is what they're taking from their peer group, their teachers and administrators. There's a real lack of accountability to their complexity, of their humanhood, to their social responsibilities, to the responsibilities of their own self-care and their own mental health. And it's not on account of mothers and fathers. One of the things that I think is really bothersome to me is hearing others, point the finger at parents and dysfunction, and that's not always the case. I think it's really important for me to say that out loud. I've processed a lot over the years, this blame and shame and finger pointing that my daughter's alienation has been because of me. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, indubitably, that is not the case. No. So I don't accept the false blame. I don't accept, the narcissism, the ambivalence. I don't accept the cruelty. I don't accept the division, the hate, the I don't accept what's been the dismissal. I don't accept what the character assassination, what's being told to me, to go shut up and go away. I don't accept that. And so there's more to come, truth warriors, but pull your kids out of school. I really wanted to share this message so that you would know from a tangible, real life situation what Candace Owens and others are referring to when they say that what is being shared, taught in schools is dangerous, and especially if you have a good kid, especially if you have a smart kid out there who's who doesn't deserve this. Uh, Pull your kids out of school. More to come on the Indubitably Sus podcast. Thank you for listening to my story. And I hope that this brings understanding and a path forward. Please like and subscribe. I will be posting more episodes Tuesdays and Fridays. And blessings to y'all. Bye for now.